All right, everyone, this is Get a Load of This Trucking. This is your host, Cameron Pesci, founder and owner of Valley Trucking Insurance. So as always, this podcast is driven by Valley Trucking Insurance. Today I've got special co-host with me, Thomas Comstock. He's a producer with me at Valley Trucking. What up, Thomas?
Hey guys, how's everybody doing today?
Doing good.
Good. Today's podcast is going to be badass. We've got a couple guys, and they are changing the way the trucking game is being played and implementing from a bunch of different standpoints. So I'm really excited to dig into this because I think it's going to be full of value, and these are just two cool guys that we have partnered with and look forward to doing business with down the road. So today I've got special guest John and special guest Johnny. So they're business partners. John, Johnny, welcome. How you guys doing?
Great. Good. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to have you guys on here. So let's start with John, and we'll get a little bit of an introduction from you. Let's hear, a little bit about what you guys got going. Tell us a little bit about Synergy Solutions. So 30,000 foot view, so that our listeners kind of understand what you guys do.
Yeah. So we're managing. I'm a managing partner for Synergy Solutions. We started Synergy Solutions really to provide support in the safety aspect of the transportation industry. We found that there's a huge gap in the industry when it comes to safety, and most companies either don't know how to implement a safety program or have the knowledge or the ability or the capacity to implement a safety program. So we started Synergy Solutions to become the capacity for these business owners that really need a safety program but just don't have the time or the ability to implement a safety program. We do everything safety management related: camera management, policies and procedures development, training development, coaching supervisors how to be more effective coaches in the industry, and we even get down into some business consulting as well and teach trucking companies how to be more profitable, because it all affects your safety program, whether we realize it or not. So yeah.
Profit's a big deal, especially for trucking companies and business owners alike. So, like I said, I'm excited to unpack a lot of this. Hey, one of the questions and coin questions that we've got on here, since we're dealing with truckers and the trucking industry, is what would your, if you don't already have one, CB handle name be?
We were prepared for this from watching the podcast, and I was talking with my wife about some of these CB handles, and she threw some out at me that I don't know if we should use on this podcast or not, but
Bring it.
I'm gonna throw the one out there that made her chuckle the most. So we're gonna roll with Peaches. And the reason Peaches is because I'm round, juicy, plump, and I'm covered in fuzz.
That's great.
I love it.
Oh man, that'll be great. I absolutely love that. And tell your wife thank you.
She'll appreciate when she watches this later and she sees that we used that. Yep.
That's awesome. How long have you been married?
16 years. So
awesome. Any kiddos or animals or anything?
5 kids. Four of those kids are animals, and human beings at the same time. So no, I got 5 kids, and I got a dog, and there's a rabbit in the basement that I don't ever see. So yeah.
That's funny. Nice. Are you into coaching? Do you have to coach any sports teams, or what's your involvement level with the kids? Like, what do they got you doing?
So my son, my 11-year-old's really into baseball. I mean, heavy into baseball. I played baseball a lot, so I'm involved with teaching him that. I got a 15-year-old that loves the golf, and I'm a golfer, so we practice in the backyard on some of the golf net stuff, and I haven't got the courage to take him out yet because he's not quite where he needs to be to actually play on the course, but we're getting there.
Sweet.
And then my youngest 5-year-old, he's everywhere, man. He likes to play baseball, but his attention span is about as big as his pinky, so it constantly changes. And then my oldest two, so I've got a son that's 18 and a daughter that's 18, and they're kind of just getting ready to be adults in this world, and that's kind of weird for me. That's a little crazy. So yeah,
Yeah, because it was probably just yesterday, right? You took them
man,
home.
it was like just yesterday. I'm teaching them how to be an adult, and now I'm like, okay, you're an adult, and I don't really have a lot of control over what you do now. So hopefully, I prepared you to be a good citizen, and they haven't disappointed yet. So hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, I'm sure this is a much easier job, Synergy Solutions, than the dad part and getting little humans ready to be adults.
Hands down.
So
Hands down.
I love it. Yeah. No, my job's a lot easier too. I've got 2 little girls, and so you put so much emphasis and stress on yourself that are you doing the right thing? Am I not doing enough? Too much? All that kind of stuff. But man, that's awesome, John. You need to add a little bit of element of like when we were kids, we had WWF. So just get them introduced to like just beating the shit out of each other and
They
fighting.
do plenty of that.
That's
They got plenty of that.
yeah.
We have a balcony in our house, and it's like this close for them jumping off that balcony on top of each other. So it's only a matter of time.
Hey, you come in as
Yeah,
Peaches.
oh, Peaches.
Just ready to-
Plump, juicy, fuzz boy. Yeah.
Get a reach for a mask.
Yeah.
Jump to the top.
That's
Hey,
so funny.
you really should see my WWE outfit. Maybe that's for a different podcast.
Yeah, it might be. All right, Johnny, the business partner, John and Johnny. Johnny, tell us a little bit about yourself, bud, and a little bit of background and what led you to partnering with John. Love to hear that.
So I guess background-wise, I started out in trucking right out of high school. Was a night dispatcher for Cisco Foods. Kind of worked my way up through it for years. Learned how to drive backing trucks into doors, and once I got the opportunity to drive outside of the yard, I did that. I've always loved trucking. Worked my way through multiple companies. Been a driver, been a transportation manager, been a VP of operations. Just love trucking. So that's kind of how I got started. John and I got hooked up because we worked together at a company called Shamrock Foods, and I actually spent quite a bit of time trying to recruit John from another company. Finally got him to come on, and he did great. Ended up ran a territory for me, and then came in and took over safety and did a fantastic job. And then we kind of went our own ways and got the opportunity actually over a bicycle to partner up. I took a bike to donate. He was going to donate it to somebody he knew, and we started talking about what he was seeing as he was a loss control specialist for insurance. Started talking about the challenges these smaller companies have, and they can't go out and get a $150,000 a year safety manager, but they need a $150,000 a year safety manager. So we started talking about how do we provide that level of service to more than one place. How do we fix more than one company? And we just I had a consulting company at the time, and I started talking to him about coming over, and he burned his boat and jumped in, and we've been going like gangbusters ever since, and it's a ton of fun. So
Awesome.
that's kind of that's my background. That's how we got started.
So you have a CB handle then?
I had one. Ironically, I always thought this was from the 50s, but they used to call me Moon because apparently there was a cartoon called Moon Mullins. And when I Googled it, I found out it was in the 20s, not in the 50s. So I don't know how they knew about it, because I don't think I would have known anything from the 20s, but that was what they always called me. And it wasn't because I earned it, by giving somebody the moon. Even though I wish I had.
Right. It's been a cool story, but it's your story. You can do whatever you want, man. I love it. That's sweet. So you did a little bit of a blue ocean strategy, it sounds like. Took some background and experience from John, his expertise. Your area of expertise was consulting, combined with the trucking, the mutual relationships, and wanting to make a change and a difference there. So that's amazing story, and that's how you get new companies and ideas born and change the industry. And the reason, so I had met John and then got introduced to Johnny was through social media, through LinkedIn, and we had made the connection there. And after he had sent me over what they do and provide, and the resources and their passion that they share for the trucking industry, I got super excited about it because, yes, coming from insurance like you, John, and being in insurance for myself, it's a huge void, especially in these newer companies or growing companies where they don't quite have enough revenue and enough trucks and employees to implement what they need to do, but they're going to have to, especially as they keep growing. And it really impacts, like you said, profit and bottom line. And a truck or a culture that isn't safe, or trucks that are constantly out of service or having maintenance issues, or getting dinged with violations, I mean, that really impacts your drive time on the road, your downtime, more specifically on that, your out of service violations, which we all know insurance isn't cheap to begin with, so you're stacking your odds heavily against you when you start running into issues. So let's unpack a little bit about what the program does, and if you were taking somebody that's green in a position to start growing, and then we'll also touch on, hey, you're also a benefit for established people, and you can be a resource for people even that have a safety department. So
Yeah.
let's run through some of that and the benefits and features and what that looks like. So I'm a new trucking company. I need help. What am I looking at? What am I doing? Let's
Absolutely.
go through that.
So I think one of the important things that we do is we first initially do just a deep dive on every customer, and my background started out in trucking, and then obviously with what Johnny told you about, I went into management and then into safety, then into director of transportation, where I managed the finances and the business side of the operation, and then went into the insurance side. So our whole approach is from every perception of the industry. We look at the driver's perception, we look at the safety manager's perception, we look at the owner of the company's perception, and then we also look at the insurance company's perception, plus the perception of the DOT. And then, I have a wife that drives on the roads. What are her perceptions of the industry as well? And so our safety management program pulls in all those perceptions and digs into every single one of them. So we pull everything back with our customers. So you're a brand new trucking company, you come to us and say, hey, we want you to manage our program. We're gonna dig in and understand, do you have the basics in place? So do you have basic policies? Do you have compliance? Do you have DQ files? Do you have do you have a DOT number to begin with, right? Just the basic stuff that you're supposed to
You're
have.
part of the clearinghouse.
Yeah, I mean, are you running a basic compliance program? And then we take that program and we start ripping off scabs that are there. We start ripping off every wound that you might have to understand, is it being managed the way that you're supposed to manage it? And then we dig into, if it's not there, we're going to develop it for you. And so that initial first month or two that we're with a new customer, it's identifying the exposures they have, identifying any gaps in the safety program that exist that are needed to meet the perception of every single person that's involved in the industry: insurance, DOT, the driver, the safety management team, and then the people who are on the roadway that expect you to drive safe, so you're protecting them as well. And we build your safety program with that perception in mind, and we help them develop it. We teach them how to manage it properly, and then we're constantly keeping a pulse on it with them. We're constantly overseeing it and watching trends or watching accidents that sneak through and understanding, why did that accident get in and how do we prevent it from happening again? Or why did this failure on compliance occur? We're doing regular DOT reviews with our customers to make sure they're going to pass a DOT audit. But building a process that helps them manage that, so when they do get a surprise audit, there's nothing to worry about. And they'll pass that audit, or they'll at least pass it with minimal issues, right? I mean, really, that's the start of what we do. And then we have a lot of customers, we get into that and they're like, hey, we're struggling to manage cameras. Can you help us with that? And so there's a section of our services that we manage camera behaviors, and we have a full-time camera management department in Synergy Solutions that does nothing but manages the cameras. And we gather data from those camera events that goes beyond what Lytix or Samsara or some of those other companies out there are even gathering. We're getting extremely granular into the behaviors. How many has this driver actually had? What caused the behavior to occur in the first place? And we give them some analytics and some data that will help drive and direct their program. And so that camera management department gives us the data on the safety management side, and then we go into their program. We say, okay, here's the trends that exist in your cameras, here's what's missing in your program, and now we're going to build something to mitigate whatever's allowing that behavior to exist. Safety is not a complicated task. We as humans complicate it, and I think what we've done is simplified safety from a third-party perspective, where it doesn't need to be terribly expensive and it's not terribly complicated to drive the results that you're looking for.
Well, the struggle that new companies have is, you start the company because you know how to find freight,
Yep.
or you have a niche, right? You know how you're going to make money. And then you realize I have to do compliance and I have to be safe, and then you get your insurance bill, and you darn near pass out because your insurance is enormous, because one, you're a new company, or two, you have a bad run rate, and then they start understanding how much impact that has on them to be insurable and to be defendable. And that's one of the things with everything we do. At the end of it, they're attractive to insurance companies. They're defendable in court if they do have an accident. Really focus on getting the stuff in there that says, hey, if my driver wrecks, this is a mistake. This driver made a mistake. He's a good driver, but he made a mistake. It's not negligence. So it's really kind of gives them that part they didn't understand, because they're good at usually whatever they're hauling. If it's dirt, cars, you name it, that's how they got in business. So like, I'm going to go make a bunch of money, and then all of a sudden people are taking their money, and we're able to come in there and say, wait a minute, we're going to help you keep that money.
All right, that's really awesome. And so that's basically um, how you're going to help the new companies, from what I understand. So my thought here is, based on all the things that you guys deep dive into to uncover to help these guys build up a proper safety program, that you'd find a lot of those same issues even with an experienced safety manager with some of the bigger fleets. Is that something that you find pretty regularly? And like, would you be able to really provide a lot of value to those people who are doing a good job, but maybe still have some gaps that they're not seeing?
I absolutely. We several of our customers are companies that have extremely strong safety departments and safety programs that were already in place. And one customer in particular, I knew them from the insurance world that I lived in. They they hired us to just help advance their safety program, because they felt like they've kind of plateaued and they couldn't really get past where they were at. We went in and did our deep dive. And when I knew them from the insurance world, I thought they were best company I've ever seen. I mean, they were stellar. They had everything in place. It was amazing. But we found from our deep dive that they were still missing some stuff. In fact, they only met about 42 to 43% of our expectations of what a good company would
Yep.
be.
Uh,
And so we built this massive task list that was just our project management list, that we wanted to attack all these various things to fill in the gap. And within a matter of 3 to 4 months, they had completed the entire list, to where we had to go back in and do another deep dive to figure out what's next. How do we propel your program to the next level? And now we're working on stuff that companies have never even heard of, things that aren't very common in the industry, that you don't see in trucking companies or any transportation company for that matter. And so now we're working on really, really high level safety management processes that will just continue to drive their losses down, and their loss runs are already amazing. In fact, this company is really gearing towards being self-insured, because they've saved so much on their insurance and saved so much on losses, that they have such a huge reserve in their financials, that they're set up to be uh, fully self-insured in the next 2 years. And I mean, that's the ultimate dream of every transportation company, really, is to slowly get to the point where they can do something like that, or get to the point where they fit the appetite of the more reputable captive insurance programs, or some of the insurance programs that will provide a return on the investment in insurance. So um, we take those companies that are established all the time and just elevate them, because there's always something that we can dig in and find and fix. And there's not a single program out there that's not ready to be elevated to the next level. Um, And even with this company received a congratulations letter from their insurance carrier when they came out to do a review, and they said, we can't find anything wrong with your program. In fact, it was my replacement from the insurance that came out and did that, and there was nothing wrong. Like, they couldn't find a single recommendation, but yet we were still finding and digging in and identifying ways that we could continue to advance that program and make it better. So even with that congratulations letter, they wanted to continue to improve and become something more than what they were today, so they could be that person
Well,
tomorrow.
our process is we're a long-term partner. So we don't go in and consult for 3 months and charge them a huge amount of money and then tell them, hey, see you later. We partner up for typically 2 years. So we're invested in their long term. So like, you think about this company continuously doing safety, we're their partner. So when they come back and say, hey, we've done this, now we want to do some more, we'll do as much or as little as they want from us. So once they get to that point where they're good, if they want to say, hey, we just want you to keep an eye on us and, come in once a quarter and help us with training, that's what we'll do. If they say, hey, we want you more engaged and we want to keep on going, we're excited about that. This company, we want them to be the best company, best trucking company in the country as far as safety. We want to be part of that journey. But we also have customers who go, hey, I'm good enough. I'm happy. I'm insurable. I'm defendable. I've done the stuff I'm supposed to do. Just be here when I need you. And it depends on the role they want from us, but we're a long-term partner. So we're there whenever they need us.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap that average time frame that you guys would typically partner up to build a more successful program for any of these carriers out there is around 2 years, and then partnership would be more or less on a la carte basis, so to speak, for your services. How long does the initial review tend to take? I mean, obviously, depending on the size of the fleet, but is it typically done within the first like 5 to 6 months where you guys can identify the problem areas and then begin to build the program, remedy in the next 3 months so you guys can deliver some actionable intelligence to these carriers, within 9 months or 6 months, 3 months? How does that kind of look?
It's a lot faster than that, actually. We actually, the first week of our on-site visit, we have already identified the majority of the exposures, and we've already provided them with an action list, an action plan, with a priority list of here's what we're going to work on first, and then here's where we're going to work on next. And we take it in small breadcrumbs, because if you shove the entire program down their throats in 1 week, they're gonna burn out, right? So we gather with the low-hanging fruit first and work on the easy stuff that's easy to pluck off and implement, that won't disrupt the drivers and not shake up the culture. We want to make sure we turn the culture boat for these drivers on safety properly. As we all know, drivers it's a sensitive subject when you start changing up how things are done. And so we want to transition them in, and almost transition drivers in where they don't notice it. It's just slowly being implemented to where it just becomes part of the regular day, part of the regular habit. So every month we're just adding just a small bite of the program. But in the background, we're just doing a ton of work with management, ton of work with ownerships, and if they have a safety manager, a ton of work mentoring the safety manager how to be more effective in their program. But that first week, we already know what we're doing, and we already know the action plan, and then it's really just piecing in the small chunks of that action plan over time.
And John, I have to imagine that as the culture changes, it's a small world, trucking, right? And these drivers start to see the impact of the change, see the environment get better for them to work for this company. It does a couple things. I'm guessing maybe you can correct me, is you're probably getting feedback that they're actually recruiting drivers to come work for them. And these drivers are talking about how great it is. Hey, we've got this, great company we work for. They truly care about us. They've made our lives better. They make the public safer. They now have a deeper meaning to go to work. And I'm guessing that they're getting people that want to come work for them just by implementing this.
You're absolutely right. And we teach our customers all the time. Drivers are human beings, right? And they're just like our kids. And if we let our kids just run wild with no boundaries and no guidelines and no securement of expectations, your kids are going to struggle. They're going to struggle emotionally, mentally, physically. They will struggle. And so when we walk into a program that has zero boundaries, zero guidelines, zero expectations, you typically don't keep those drivers. They go somewhere else. They leave because they don't feel safe. They don't feel secure. It doesn't feel like home when you have those boundaries, or when you don't have those boundaries or guidelines. So right out of the gate, the first thing we're doing with these companies is we're teaching them, here's the boundaries and guidelines we need to put into place. Here's the policies and procedures that need to be in place. Now let's go out and teach your drivers these policies and procedures and give them some comfort in knowing there's some expectations that they can meet, and expectations that we're going to meet as management as well, to ensure that they have full-time work here, and that we're not going to get shut down because of a DOT audit. We're not going to get shut down because of an accident. That we each have some accountability in the safety program. This company that we mentioned before, we actually went out and met with their drivers and had their drivers help us build their camera management program. It's their program. It's not the company's program. It's the driver's program. Cameras are there to protect our drivers. And the benefit of cameras is that it eventually does protect the company, but realistically, it's there for the driver's protection. And that's been our approach from the get-go. The safety program is the protection for drivers. They need to be involved as much in the development of that program as anybody else. And when we do that and we involve the driver force in that program, now we've just empowered them to have some ownership in the safety, and we've empowered them to be more than just drivers. And I think that's what's missing in the industry. And so when you have that culture built, it does attract the better drivers, because they want to be part of something bigger than just driving a truck. They want to contribute to the problems that exist in the industry.
Yeah, and I think they genuinely care, right? They're kind of taking an oath to protect the public when they get their CDL or get behind the wheel, and they're compassionate, and that's what everyone wants, is they want to get from point A to point B and get there safely and get their job done and get home at night. So, yeah, I think that's awesome. I think you had touched on a couple of things too. You implement it in bite-sized chunks slowly, not to just create this huge shockwave of change within the organization, but another key component there is, as a leader or a business owner, which is primarily most likely who we're talking to, is you don't need buy-in from your drivers. You just need to implement and let the results speak for themselves and get the buy-in on your behalf. And so I think a lot of people are scared to make these changes because of the old potential attitude or the existing culture, good or bad, is they're going to be resistant or hesitant to change. So now, Johnny, is that where you come in with your consultation background and like consult with some of these owners to implement? Or tell us a little bit about how that interaction goes with the company owners and leaders or safety managers.
So we always find we go in, typically if they don't have that management experience, coming from big companies where we got lots of training, we have lots of drivers and lots of developed rules. You get in these, smaller companies and in these, privately owned companies, and they're not used to that. So we spent a lot of time with them. We spent a lot of time developing them. One of the first things we built was behavioral change training. We went out, we actually hired a teacher to help us with it, and we built some training on how to coach a driver. And the first training we did with one of our customers, we did a hands-on afterwards, and they had to coach a driver, and the safety manager got to play the driver, and the first thing out of his mouth is, "Well, I'll quit." So we have training for that. We train them to deal with that. Because they have that fear. They have that fear of having that conversation about, I'm changing the culture, or I expect, I saw something that you need to improve. Their worry is, well, if I say something, that driver's going to quit. Which, John was dead on. Nobody wants to play for the team that has the first pick in the draft. Everybody wants to play for the team that goes to the Super Bowl. So you want to be the team that goes to the Super Bowl from a safety standpoint, and that's rules, and that's telling somebody when they made a mistake. That's telling somebody what a good job looks like, and holding them accountable, because they want to be a professional driver. So we spent a lot of time with the owners and with supervisors, coaching them through that, and even I would tell you, John's probably one of the best person I've ever seen in front of a driver having a conversation with a tough driver. So, at times when we have a new customer, he'll be in the room with that manager, having that conversation with that driver, and then we'll coach that manager afterwards about, having this, being honest with them about their behavior, being honest with them about their driving habits. We teach them a lot about, you're doing this because you care. I'm talking to you about your following distance or about your talking on your cell phone when you're driving down the highway because I care about you, because I don't want you to get hurt, because I don't want you to be in danger, and we kind of go through those things, and sometimes it is standing next to them because they've just never done that. They might have had kids and managed their kids, but they might have been a driver and then they started the company and now they got to manage drivers, and that's usually a tough task.
Yeah, and a lot of people take that route. I think you get a truck or you're a driver, you get your own truck, and next thing you know, you're a business owner.
Yep.
Without knowing what you don't know, which hopefully is if somebody's on this podcast or listening, they're investing their time into getting better or learning or seeing what's out there to help them get tools and operate a better business. So this is exactly the perfect conversation for that. Another thing you touched on too, which I don't think, and this is a little bit of a higher level conversation and maybe for the companies that are 25, 50 trucks and beyond, is a captive program or self-insuring. All these trucking companies that you talk to that are starting out is like, well, I know XYZ company, they pay their own insurance and they do this. And like, it's doable with a lot of money in the bank. Or if you can partner with the best captive programs, and what we work with are about 50 trucks or more, really kind of the spot that you need to be at in order to get a captive going. But man, with something like this implemented and you guys wanted to bring, if I had a captive, which is something we'll chat about, probably offline, is, let's get this captive put together. And in order for another person to be part of this captive, guess what? They need a solution like you guys, and they need to implement, and you guys need to give us a passing like certified score of X of 70 or better for them to even qualify. And we know that that's going to produce money and returns back to the captive program, which effectively you're getting rewarded for being safe. You're not just leaving it at the mercy of the insurance company to pay you what they think you're worth or premiums are worth.
And that's
so
really,
I love that you touched on
really
that.
where some of this idea came from too was, when I was in the insurance world, a lot of the customers that I was talking to, some of them were in captives, particularly in the towing world, and they're part of a captive group, and they struggled with managing their safety, and there's some expectations when you're in those captive groups that the entire group wants you to meet. And so if you don't have those basic expectations already in place, you're not even considered for that captive insurance. And my whole drive is to take every one of our customers that we work with and make sure that they're captive insurance ready. So if they do want to pull the trigger on that, they've already got everything in place. And so some of those captives have risk assessments that they do in order to get into the captive program. And if you're already meeting that or exceeding the expectations of that risk assessment long before you're even approached for the captive, you're golden. You're almost a shoe in for those better insurance programs. So that's been a huge drive of mine, and really what I base our whole approach off of is let's make you captive ready. And in the process, when we do that, we're making you more defendable. So we're fighting against the plaintiff attorneys of the industry. And we're fighting against the career lawsuits that exist, and then we're fighting against the regulations that are constantly changing, that are constantly putting more restrictions on you. If we can make those restrictions as light and easy as possible because you're adhering to them with processes that are effective and easily managed, you have nothing to worry about. Go build your business, add more trucks. That's what you wanted to do in the first place, was to grow your business to 20, 30, 50, 60, 100, eventually 6,000 trucks, right? We want to be the Prime Incs of the world, but yet we don't have the Prime Inc program or the Prime Inc foundation first. And that's what we got to help them develop. And we could take all these little companies that are coming in that have 10, 15, 20 trucks and get them to the point where they don't worry about the safety program, and they don't worry about their insurance, and they don't worry about DOT, and all they worry about is, where am I going to find my next truck? Which that's the trouble right now, right? We can't find trucks. So
yeah, that's a big
I
trouble
can't
right
solve
now.
that
The
problem.
used market is bananas.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll be on to something if we can solve that, man. Overnight, that would be crazy there. So, yeah, and I think that Yeah, and captive's a little high level, so we'll kind of jump off of that topic just because I don't want to deep dive that. But you did mention too, like, hey, we want to get you best in class, or this company that quote unquote was best in class wants to get better. And from the standpoint of being defendable, especially in these venues such as Florida, Texas, California, some of the nasty venues that are coming up with this nuclear verdict, and all of a sudden you got $20 million lawsuits and stuff getting thrown around. This is why it's important, and this is what saves companies from A, going out of business or bankrupt, or you having to fork out millions of dollars out of your company in the event of an accident, is because they deep dive into the driver file maintenance, the hiring practices, your handbooks, all that kind of stuff, which is what you're telling me you guys are doing. So I think that that value right there, whether or not the company owner understands or realizes that or not, they need to, especially if they want to be a real player. That's how you protect yourself, and you can't have the attitude of, well, that's what I pay insurance for. It's like, sure, that's fine, but you're going to pay an astronomical premium in insurance after the first time that happens. Good luck, because what happens with a fatality, John? You're from the insurance world. They show fatalities on there and poor DOT practices. I mean, what happens to them?
Unfortunately, I've been on the other side of some of that stuff, and we've dropped customers on the
Yeah.
insurance side because they weren't meeting some of these basic expectations. And on the insurance
Yeah.
side, that was my job. My job was to identify the exposures that were high risk for the insurance company and give recommendations to underwriting of what we should do. Should we keep the account? Should we get off the account? And um,
In my experience, it's always no from an
yeah,
underwriter. No, I'm just joking.
sometimes you just go, why did we even write that business? We don't even have a DOT number, and we still wrote it.
Yeah.
You know,
But people don't realize that, and a lot of trucking companies, I don't think, understand how that impacts them as a business owner. Which, if you peel the layers back and think, okay, I'm a business owner, which provides for my family, my future generation, my employees' families, their future generations, the communities that they live in. It just kind of keeps going down the line. Plus, also, priority, or number one priority, is safety of the driver and the public, right? So I think all this stuff is like a must have. So, and you guys will do a single truck, right? Like if there was a small operation, 1, 2 trucks, or a mom and pop shop, you guys
so
help them as
what's
well.
actually incredible about that question there, Cameron, is we are in the process of getting ready to launch a Synergy Solutions safety co-op. That is going to be
Boom.
exactly for those small guys, the 1, 2s, anybody really that has less than 10 trucks, and maybe it might even be a little bit higher, less than 15 trucks, can buy into the safety co-op for a very small monthly fee and have access to monthly training, have access to training for the drivers, have access to drug and alcohol consortium and drug and alcohol testing, have access to DQ file management and DQ file management processes, have access to policies and procedures that would be developed for them, and it's on a very uh, just a very simple platform that can be easily managed either online or and that's the intent, is it's going to be online, and they're covered. And then when we identify, hey, we've got some issues in there that they need some deeper help with, we'll reach out to them directly and say, hey, here's what we can do for you. And it might be on a project management basis type fee that's really nominal based off their size of fleet to just help them establish a good program. Our whole drive from the start has been we care about this industry. We have a strong care and love for the people in this industry, and we have zero advocates out there for most of these company owners. FMCSA, we want to think that they're an advocate, but really they're issuing DOT numbers and then coming in and doing an audit saying, hey, you're screwed up, we're going to shut you down if you don't fix it. There's really no support to make sure these companies are successful, and quite frankly, without them, our country would struggle. And we need more. We need more people to come into the industry to help keep America moving. And they're some of the hardest working people we've ever dealt with. And my dad drove truck. My brother still drives truck. I just think our compassion and care for the industry it outweighs anything else that we can achieve. So if there's an opportunity to help somebody, we're gonna figure it out and make sure that we can make it affordable for them to get the help they need.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
lot
that's
to unpack too. I mean, you guys have a wealth of knowledge that you guys will be able to provide all of your clients. This is really wonderful. So a couple follow-up questions to a couple things. Number one, you're talking about developing a culture of safety within the organization as they grow. With current established companies, they're going to have a lot of change that they're going to need to go through. What do you guys do to kind of reinforce those good habits so when you're 2 years is up, that they are able to maintain those good habits after your guys' partnership? And then also, do you have any kind of metrics on the success rate after you guys have, parted ways? How successful those companies maintain their books? Do you guys ever do any, follow-ups with them?
Yeah, Johnny, you want to answer that, or you want me to answer it?
I can jump in a little bit. So, we right now, we started, we've been in business or doing safety for about a year or so. We don't have anybody we've parted ways with yet. And if they choose not to part ways, they don't have to. But the way we approach safety is we build it into your standard operating processes, because safety can't be something that you have to do. It has to be something that happens organically. So, you know, a good example is we give everybody an onboarding check sheet. So the check sheet goes through, here's all the things you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do when you send this person an application. Here's what you need to do at the interview. Here's what you're going to do when you start them. And it's just a checklist so they don't forget it. Because if they're small, they might hire a driver every 9 months if they're lucky. So we want to give them simple processes. So when they go, hey, I have to do this process, safety is already built into that process. It's built into how they do business. So it's not something they have to remember to do. It's something that just naturally happens, like having somebody fill out direct deposit. So we really focus on that process management, because safety is a process. So many companies get stuck on, I have a safety manager and it's all that person's responsibility to do all this stuff, and then they fail. The dispatcher has to do safety, the HR person has to do safety, the owner has to do safety, the mechanic, everybody who touches anything in that business has to have the safety built into their process. So that's really where we go. And so we get involved in all the aspects of the business. Our goal is that ultimately if they say, hey, we don't need you anymore, at that 2-year mark, they can go do what they want. They can move on, and we can be proud of who they are, and they can just keep on growing. Because, John touched on it. If you get it in their processes, they stop worrying about it. It's not, I got to do safety. It's, I got to go find me another truck, another driver, another load. I can go from 5 trucks to 50 trucks, which is a little difficult with insurance companies sometimes because they don't want you to grow super fast. But
Yeah.
we want to get them in that role, and we want to make sure everybody knows, kind of does. It's just the way they always do things. Ultimately, safety is just built into the
Okay.
fabric of how they always did it.
Well, I also think it's important to recognize that the deep dive that we do with them at the start, we're doing that on an ongoing basis as well. So we have benchmarks throughout that 2-year agreement. So we do it initially, and then at 6 months, we're going to do another deep dive or a medium dive onto various sections of the safety program to do an audit to make sure that whatever we've implemented is actually being utilized, and that it's being utilized effectively. When we get to the 1-year mark, we're going to do the exact same deep dive we did at the very beginning. So we're going to come in and do a full review of the entire program, and our review process includes a report and also strategic questions that we ask and strategic things that we will actually do an audit on to make sure the process is effective. And if there's any gaps, we're going to put them on a project management list and we're going to attack them. So we're constantly keeping a pulse.
It's kind of a joke among some of our customers, because one of the things that happens is we'll say, do you have this in place? And they'll say, sure. And we'll say, okay, well, let's see it. So if they don't document it, they don't have it. So it's always a joke when we're at the customers, because John will say, do you have that document? No. They'll say, we don't do it. Because ultimately, if you go to court, if you got to defend yourself, that's exactly what that attorney looks for. You say, I train every driver in defensive driving. Well, do you have a sign off? No. Do you document that? Well, then you don't do it. If you can't prove it, you don't do it. So it becomes that deal of they just get in the habit of that. And it's kind of a funny thing with our customers of, John will say, do you have that documented? And they'll go, we don't do it.
Yeah.
Because in theory they do, but in reality they don't, or at least they don't record it. So it's kind of funny.
That's awesome. Now, do you guys do? What would it look like? So you hire a company, or a company hires you, I should say. Do you do an on-site? Is it virtual? Has it changed with COVID? Like, what does that look
No.
like?
Okay, can I take this, John, real quick?
Yeah, please.
I would tell you so. So I get to witness this. So, when John worked in the insurance world, that's part of what he did. He went in and did this risk observation or risk assessment on a client. That's essentially what we do when we start, but it's really it's a risk assessment on steroids, for lack of a better term. Get into every aspect of what they do. I mean, the details, DQ files, training, driver application. We look at absolutely everything they do and question everything they do and ask for examples. John asks for examples of everything they do and looks at it and figures out, are you 100% in this? And so like when he said a good company was 42%, they're doing a lot of the good stuff, but when he starts delving into it, it's, do you have it documented? Do you have the right form? Are you doing every single step when you're supposed to on every driver? And when he says rip off scabs, a lot of stuff comes up. A lot of stuff companies think they do or think they have covered, they don't. And so we're able to find that and then create a work list to go, hey, let's build this into the fabric of what you do. So we don't come in a year from now and go, well, you said you do this, but you don't actually do it. So it's incredibly detailed. It's a full day. That on-site is typically anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. If they're bigger, it might even be longer. It includes transportation. It includes the shop. We do some OSHA observations while we're there. So it's a little bit of everything. It's a lot of everything. So when we walk out, we go, hey, this is what you would look like if you were a fantastic, safety company. And now we're going to make a path to get you there. And we're going to start attacking the stuff that's really the high level or some of the low hanging fruit, but then the stuff that's the biggest, riskiest stuff first and work our way down.
Yeah, and
Okay, so on site for the big one, and then a combination. I'm guessing a virtual phone or whatever on the ongoing.
It really all depends on what our customers need. So we have a customer that, our contract is quarterly on-site visits, and then monthly meetings, and then everything else in the background we're doing remotely, obviously. But they asked, hey, we want you on site more, so we've arranged to be on site once a month, and then we have bi-weekly meetings with them where we meet via Zoom, and we go through the Gantt chart and we discuss, here's all the items that we're working on, here's what you guys need to do, here's what Synergy's doing, just to keep a pulse on the progress of the actual program. So we don't have a set standard of what it's going to be, besides, hey, you're going to get a minimum of a quarterly visit and a minimum of a monthly meeting with us via Zoom, and then all the other background stuff, happens. One of our consultants that works for us, he's on site with his customer twice a week. They're local to us, and so he has the capability of being there more frequently, and that's what they need to help them get through the first little bit of the program. So if their needs require more than a quarterly visit, that's what we're going to talk about with them and establish.
Nice. Well, it's a perfect answer to that, and they get a chance to see Peaches live and
Yes,
living
sir.
sounds too. It sounds like.
I'll tell you, man, my on-site visits are like the Kool-Aid man coming through the wall, just kicks the door in, and he slaps some people around a little bit, and they're like giving him hugs afterwards. I mean, it's exactly what it's like. And I remember the first time Johnny went with me on a visit, and he's like, "Holy crap, man!" He's like, you literally came in, kicked the door in, punched everybody in the face, and they all got up and gave you a hug. It was just, it's, we're not afraid to have the bold conversations and have the bold, hey, you're not doing this, and this is why I'm here. I'm going to help you fix this. And we have no problem calling somebody out and calling them out on their faults, but then telling them that's okay. We're going to build you into something bigger tomorrow than what you are today. And if you're on board, we're going to take you there. If you're not, we're going to get you on board, because this is where the company needs to go.
No, I like that. You kind of beat them and then run them a warm bath afterwards. You're like, all right.
Put a steak on their bruises.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's like, if you guys, end up working together with Synergy, you have to expect that they're going to find something and that you're going to get punched in the face a little bit. So, be happy
Well,
about it.
and you're probably paying. I mean, you'd want it. That's what you're paying for,
Exactly.
too. If they're doing everything perfect, or in theory,
Yeah.
they don't need you, but nobody's doing it perfect. Like you said, you guys have the best in class, or better than best in class, and like you're still finding things that they can do better constantly, and it's always going to change or evolve as companies' needs change and evolve, or the logistics change. I mean, there's going to be so many things as it goes that always updates and changes. Use of technologies, cameras, that kind of stuff. So, man, that's great. So, what is the best way for folks if they want to learn more, if they want to set up a conversation, consultation, look into your services? Where do we direct people? Where do they go? Who do they talk
so
to?
we got a couple places they can go. They can go to our website. It's synergy-solutionsllc.com. They can submit a request there for more information. They can learn more about who we are, a little bit about our background there, our services. We have a page that describes what we do. There's also a page that shows the current customers that we're working with. It probably needs to be updated. We probably have about 5 or 6 we need to add to that still. And then there's also a blog there, some articles that we write about some of the things we've done and different things that we've achieved. LinkedIn is always a great place to find us as well. So we're on LinkedIn as Synergy Solutions. I think it's Synergy Solutions LLC on LinkedIn as well, or they can go directly to our individual LinkedIn pages as well.
How do you find that most people find out about you guys? Is it word of mouth currently?
We are doing zero advertising. It is 100% word of mouth. We have an
Perfect.
insurance carrier that is promoting our services for us. We get a lot out there, word of mouth of our current customers, just talking to their friends in the industry. And then just people that we know, that we've dealt with in the past, that know what we're doing, have reached out to us and asked us to come in and meet with them.
That's awesome. What's on the horizon? Anything that people should expect to see from you guys coming up? Is there any thing next year that's changing or shifting in the marketplace, or anything that you guys want to share?
Well, we're in the process of building. I think John might have touched on it. We're building training. So I said we hired some teachers to build supervisor training. We're building driver training, and our intent is early next year to roll out driver training. So we'll have a package of 4 classes for onboarding. One of those is defensive driving. There'll be initially 12 shorts of the defensive driving, so full-blown defensive driving class, and then 12 shorts. And our intention is every time they hire a driver, electronically, we're going to send a driver training, onboarding training, so they automatically get it. And then in the background, every month, we're going to send every driver that we manage training. It's going to be about a 5-minute short, probably on defensive driving or on some safe driving rules or winter driving when winter comes. But we're automatically gonna push out a safety meeting every month to all the drivers, so they won't have to do anything. They'll just be drinking coffee in their office, and their drivers will get training. So we're really excited about that. And like I said, we hired some teachers to help us with that because, we're safety people. We can give you all the everything that goes in the class, and if we teach it, you can take a good nap while we're teaching it. So we got some people who know how to, really high school teachers that know how to deal with keeping people awake and keeping people engaged, and helping them remember when it's done. So it's going to be real exciting.
I feel like y'all need to connect with Next Generation in Trucking. They were a guest on the podcast, and they have a high school class for truck driving. So Dave Dine over there, he's a great guy. So you guys should reach out and connect with them. I think that would present a unique opportunity there. So
I think something for us to be on the lookout in the industry right now is changes in the entry level driver training coming up here in February of 2022. We already are struggling to get good drivers in the door. So we need to, as an industry, get creative with how we attract new drivers. How do we get the younger generation in? And so that next generation training that was on your podcast, I think, is the way to do it. And we're going to see a larger hurt of getting good drivers in the door. So for me, we got to focus on changing the industry and making these drivers proud to be part of this industry again. And I think the way to do that is to build good programs and processes that they can stand by.
Yeah, and what a great industry
Yeah.
it is. That's what brought us all here
Absolutely.
today.
Yep.
That's why we're here. Yeah, it's awesome. So one of the parting gifts that we'll leave with the audience, and really it's a question for you guys, and you guys can both answer, individually answer, collaborative, it doesn't matter. But let's say we had a billboard or a plane flying through the sky with a message. What would your message to the audience be? And it could be anything you want.
I'll let you go first, Johnny.
We'll do it separate.
For me, it's get back to that. Being a driver is a profession, just like being a doctor, just like being anything else. And we need to get back to that culture. When I got my CDL, I told everybody I knew. I grew up watching Smokey and the Bandit and Convoy and love trucks. And I think we have to get back to that culture of being proud to be a truck driver, of not being the scourge of the road, of being the knights of the road. Being the best drivers out there, the people that you want to have show up when you have a problem. And I think that's what we have to do as an industry. Get out there, remind them you're not working at Subway, you're driving a truck, you're doing something that not everybody can do. It's a skill. And I think that's really my message. That's what I would have on there. Driving's a skill.
Nah, preach. I love it. All right, John, Peaches, let's hear it.
I think my message for the world would be be the change that you're asking for. Everybody wants to see improvement, but nobody wants to get their hands dirty to improve. So if you're tired of how something's being done, be the change you're asking for. Go out and do it. Or the other billboard would say burn your boat, because that's probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. So
Awesome. Well, guys, sincerely, I thank you guys for taking time out of your day coming on the podcast. I know for me, there was a ton of nuggets in there to unpack. Hopefully the listeners gathered a thing or two. More importantly, hopefully they actually take action, reach out to you guys and check out what you guys have to offer, because I think it's amazing. And it's going to put so much money back in the pocket of these companies and overall just make them a better company to work for and strive long term. So, Thomas, I appreciate you hopping in. So, that concludes the episode of this. You can follow us on Facebook. We got a Get a Load of This Trucking Facebook group. As John said, we're on LinkedIn and pretty much on all the major platforms. So when this rolls out, we'll get it to you guys and you can share it.
awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
guys.
having us.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.